Okay, so we're now ready for our first speaker. Without any further ado, allow to present Dr. Anoulak Kittikhoun. He is the Chief Strategist Officer for the Mekong River Commission, whose academic credentials are nothing short of impressive. But I will still name a few. Here we go. International Valedictorian from the Australian National University. Master and Doctor of Philosophy from the University of New York. Countless publications on topics like international relation, conflict management, and former international staff of the UN. Please welcome Dr. Anoulak Kittikhoun, please.
Sabadi, you hear me well? Sabadi. So, what is the idea of Laos? This is the topic of my talk today. When you hear about Laos, usually three things come to mind. First, you are so Lao. When you hear this, what comes to your mind? That we are either lazy, stupid, undeveloped. Second, Lao PDR, please don't rush. When you hear this, what comes to your mind? We are a bit laid back, a bit conservative, resistant to change. And then the third idea and final idea, and this really combines the first idea and the second idea, and that is Laos, the most bombed country on earth. Now, when you hear this, what comes to your mind? That we are a victim, a pawn, a small country not in control of its destiny. So these perceptions and images and ideas about Laos really generated a mix of emotions in me since I was very young. And I'm sure it did many of you. When you hear you're so loud, it makes you a bit angry, perhaps, a bit ashamed, maybe. Right? What about please don't rush? When you hear this, why are you telling us not to rush? If Singapore, a small country, can develop in 30 years, why cannot Laos? Do you want us to be stuck in poverty forever? And then the most bombed country on earth. This really struck me. Laos, my country, a victim, a pawn, always subject to foreign intervention, interference, and power plays. So I went on a little journey to find out, where do these images and perceptions come from? Is this who we are as a country? And I found out through my studies and research that there are some elements of truth in some of these images and perceptions. But taken together, they are wrong. They do not represent the whole idea of Laos. The Lao idea, like all ideas, come from two things, and two things only. The location of our country and the history of this location. So place and history. So let's examine where Laos is as a place. Laos, as you know, is surrounded by 5 bigger countries. To the north, we have China and Myanmar. To the west, we have Vietnam. To the east, to the east, we have Vietnam. To the west, we have Thailand. And to the south, we have Cambodia. And on top of this, we are located in Southeast Asia, which is often known as a shatter belt. And a shatter belt, because of its very location, always invites foreign interventions and interference. But geography can only tell part of the story. It is the history of this geography that made Laos into what it is today, that forged who we are as a nation. And here 3 important relationships stand out. First, between Laos and Thailand. Second, between Thailand and Vietnam over Laos. And third, superimposed on these 2 relationships are the great power conflicts throughout history. So let's examine first Thai-Lao relationship. So this is the most intriguing and for the Lao idea and what it means to be us. And here 3 dates more than any other shape who we are. 1779, 1827, and 1893. Now, most historians would tell you before 1779, Lao-Thai relations were happy. And then it all changed in 1779 when Siam, as Thailand was known back then, invaded Lao Lan Sang, as Lan Sang, Lao was known back then, and removed from the Vientiane the Emerald Buddha, where it had been for 300 years. Now, I'm not here to debate the origins of the Emerald Buddha or why Thailand invaded, but it's fair to say that the removal for the Lao people was an act of dispossession. It was the moment when the country came under Siamese overlordship for the next 100 years. The only time when there was major resistance was when King Anoulak revolted in 1827. Now, while he did not succeed in victory, he did succeed in raising nascent Lao consciousness, a consciousness that was distinct from a greater Thai identity. And then came 1893. And this was a watershed moment for both countries. It was when the French came to Indochina and split basically Lao Lan Sang into two parts. One part into Siam and the other part into French Indochina. Now for Siam, it was a story of loss, of course, because at that time Siam was the overlord of the whole kingdom, and they lost this eastern part of the territory to France. But for the Lao people, it was more ambivalent, the attitude. It was more ambivalent and ambiguous. For us, it was maybe a story of loss as well, because we did lose the western part of the Lan Sang kingdom to Siam, which became now Isan. But on the other hand, it was also a story of partial gain. And you can thank the French for this. Laos, by that time now, a smaller country of present-day geography, but independent from Siam. So that is the historical baggage that underlies Lao-Thai relations at the moment, throughout history. And although I think Laos and Thailand are great friends and family now, and that's why I can say all these things, you can appreciate some of the sentiments that underlie our relationship. What about Vietnam, Thailand? And the relations of these two bigger neighbors over Laos. This is also important for the Lao idea. Throughout history, Thailand and Vietnam has been known as in competition over this place. And we are the buffer state between these two. And when Laos failed to become a buffer state, a war broke out between the two, as was during the time in the 1830s, during King Anoulak's revolt, into the 1840s. And that was not the only time. Tensions and war broke out often between the two. And we, as the land sandwiched in between, usually suffered. And then superimposed over these two relations and rivalries are the Eastern and Western conflicts over this place. In the 18th and 19th century, it was the British and the French. In the mid-20th century, it was the Americans and the Soviets. And during that time, during the Cold War, when we became the most bombed country on earth. Right? And you can say that today, maybe it's the Chinese and the Americans that are added. Right? So Laos' location, the relationship with Thailand on the one hand, and the Vietnamese and the Thai competition over the place, superimposed with this superpower and great powers rivalry and conflicts over this place, really constrain our thoughts and actions, reinforce our victimhood, making us humble and modest in our action. But is this the true idea about Laos? I would say that there has some elements of truth, but it is not the complete picture. It's not a complete picture. Because Laos, the idea of Laos, the true idea of Laos, goes beyond the geography that imposes limits on us. It goes beyond the fact that we are a small country surrounded by bigger neighbors and therefore don't have too much room to move It goes beyond the constraint not of our own making, and therefore it's just easier to slowly move along, don't fight with anyone, don't rush into anything. They tell us, and we begin to tell ourselves, that don't make the situation worse than it is. Right. But is this the true idea of Laos? I think not. And throughout our history, we have been very good as a people to take opportunities that are given to us and use it for our advantage. Right? So the quintessential idea of Laos is this curious mix between humility on the one hand and seizing opportunities on the other. And I provide you two examples. The first is the Lao Revolution of the 70s, and then the second is the Lao Chairmanship of ASEAN this year. During the revolution, the revolutionary knew very well the place of Laos in its history. They knew very well the memories and the sentiments of the people about this place. And they mobilized and formed strategic alliances with the Vietnamese revolutionaries and mobilized against the French colonialists, not French Institute, we love you. But French colonialists at that time, and then the American imperialists, right, again backed up by their Thai allies. And they succeeded. Right? And then the second example was the Lao Chairmanship of ASEAN this year. Now, this chairmanship was given to us. It was our turn. And by all accounts, if you read all the newspapers, it was a major success for our foreign policy, right? Where under the chairmanship of Laos, many agreements were struck that balanced the interests of different global leaders and global powers, from the US to China to Japan to India, Australia, etc., and all the ASEAN states. Right? And this acclaim came even when, leading up to the summit, they had doubts about tiny Laos' ability to pull off such a world event. And everybody contributed leading up to the summit, from individuals who swept their houses and the streets to communities and businesses and youth and networks that set up events, forums to take opportunities of the occasion. So the event, the success of the event really exemplified the best idea about Laos. That is, we are humble because we know and recognize our limits, but if given the opportunity, we excel and succeed. But I want to end with something for you to think about. And that is, in a world that is so vicious than in the past, that is so technologically advanced, that are so integrated, that are so complex, is this idea of Laos, even the true idea, sufficient? If humility is our strength and seizing opportunity is our trademark, this is sufficient in a world where people take advantage of you, or when there are no opportunities for you to take advantage of. I say that this idea of Laos is necessary, but no longer sufficient. No longer sufficient. Because we live in a world that is so much crazier than in the past. Right? Remember, our geography makes us small and vulnerable, but it makes us important. So it is up to us to become land-linked and not landlocked. It is up to us to create and not be created. It is up to us to play equals to the worlds that come here, rather than being left behind as the most bombed country on earth. So to avoid that, I think as a people, we have to come together to make opportunities rather than waiting for them to come. We have to incorporate another metaphor in this Lao idea, and that metaphor is not about rushing, it's about running. Because running, why? Running is strategic. Running is steady. Running is purposeful. Running is about searching for opportunities and searching for greatness. So Lao PDR, please do run. Thank you very much.
Please give one more round of applause for Dr. Anoulak, please.